The work is called The Coming Spring, which speaks to rebirth and change. Appropriate concepts for a sculpture that came about as part of reconciliation.
We all feel something change when spring comes, when the snow just simply stops and you begin to see grass.
But also concepts the artist hoped to see in himself as he created the work.
I've lived this much of my life and did not participate. I did not know, but ignorance only goes so far. My role now is, and Justice Murray Sinclair said that I don't care if you know about the past, but I do care if you do something about the future, and that's my job.
And to fulfill that job, Gordon Reeve not only designed and built the piece, he helped select the spot it would live.
This is an extremely beautiful site. You have all of the things that are important to First Nations culture, the sky, the grass, the water behind. So the site itself is what kind of dictated the sculpture in the beginning.
But The Coming Spring was originally destined for this area in Victoria Park, near a small group of trees. He was drawn to this spot instead, and then he received what he felt was a sign that confirmed the choice. And Gordon Reeve has become very much a believer in signs.
At the top of the hill, under that central tree, in a clearing of grass surrounded by snow, was this child's toque, a beautiful green toque with 4 eagle feathers drawn onto it. And I just knew this had to be the place.
What a pleasure to meet you.
Oh, hello.
Thank you.
You're very lucky because he's not usually
So I just wondered, I was going to say, so I wonder if the artist is here.
Reeve, a documentarian and sculptor who lives in the Niagara region, has pieces across the country. During the 2-day process of erecting The Coming Spring, he spoke about what drew him to the project and the conflict he felt in trying to convey the idea of reconciliation as a non-Indigenous man.
I guess the goal is not to be didactic, not to teach people through this piece. That would be horribly wrong. The intent is simply to make something that allows people the opportunity to respond. To say, let us move on, let us have a reconciliation. We do not forget the past, but we are so hopeful of the future. And it's those things that inspired me to make this piece.
The round central element is reflective of something central to traditional First Nations life, although it typically isn't seen in the air.
I think probably where the arcing form started with me was seeing images of the stones that are used traditionally, and I've seen them in archaeological sites. The stones would have been put around the base of a teepee to anchor it. And I think from that, many other forms developed.
The 2 spires support the arch, which is also attached to the ground through these bases. But they have other significance as well. One represents First Nations, the other Métis culture. The joining of the spires at the top is symbolic of the connection of those 2 cultures, as well as the others that have come here.
But also said to the rest of the world, you are welcome here. You belong here just as we do, to live in peace regardless of what your background, race, color, religion, anything else. A spire in every culture, right back to the earliest times and the earliest expression of that shape, was a way to touch the sky, to point to the sky. Every culture is drawn to the sky. I believe the sky is the place where ideas are formed, where the great thinkers looked. On a brilliant day like this, it will just glow. I mean, it's so wonderful. But at midnight, when you've got even a half moon, doesn't have to be a full moon, you will come here and you will see it glowing there because it's that reflective. As your position changes, the light changes, and it seems to be somewhat scintillated as light moves across it. I know this happens, and I know that people respond to it because I've seen people interacting with my sculpture where they walk back and forth and they're trying to see where the light's coming from and what it's doing.
But it isn't just a sculpture for the eyes. It will also attract the attention of the ears in a way that Reeve hopes will encourage people to not forget the mistakes of the past.
So these sounds that will come from there are intended to remind people of the children that were lost in the residential school, but they're also intended to be bittersweet, to sound like the voice of a child in the distance. And I think we are capable of holding two different thoughts, two different emotions about the same thing in our mind. So the idea is that you will hear this sound in the distance, in a sense, in the past, and you will remember, but with the kind of bittersweetness that we all have of things that we've lost in the distance. You will remember it, and you know you have to keep going.
On the chilly day the chimes were installed, Reeve invited representatives of the Saskatoon Tribal Council and Central Urban Métis Federation to the site to explain his vision in person.
This for me is the most critical, the most emotional part.
We can see that he's doing it with his heart, and for us it's I'm okay with it. I really am. I'm pleased and I'm happy that he's taken the direction of listening to elders and what their vision is, and putting that in a drawing and then having this beautiful piece here in Saskatoon today.
Shirley Eisbister, the president of Comfy, has been involved in the planning for the work since the process began in early 2017, and was part of the committee that selected Reeve's vision from the final 3 candidates.
I think it showcased everything that I believe in reconciliation and diversity and people coming together. I thought the sculptor had the feeling for Mother Earth and understood what the treaties were about.
When you look up there, they're way up there, which can be sky behind.
We've worked so hard for reconciliation, and a monument like this tells 1,000 words just by having a statue in there and saying, now we really are working on reconciliation.
Acceptance and approval for the work from the First Nations and Métis communities has been important to Reeve throughout the process, as part of his goal to make sure he got it right. He becomes overwhelmed when recalling being invited to be a part of the site blessing ceremony.
I'd never been in a situation like that before, and it was very emotional. As you can see.
In addition to the sensitivities that went into the design from a cultural perspective, there were also practical logistics to take into consideration to ensure it was structurally safe and sound.
See, physically, it's extremely difficult to put together this enormous structure. Remember, it's never been assembled before this moment, yet there are judgments that go right down to 1/16 of an inch that have to be dead on 30 feet in the air to make this whole thing stand up. This sculpture is unique in the body of work, in part because of where it comes in my career. It comes very close to the end, and I feel like there's a great deal that I understand that I have not understood before. And so I feel when I look at it, it's saying things that had I known them earlier, I might have said them, or I might have said them differently.
Reeve hopes that the work will not only bring people to this place in Victoria Park, but also to see the space in a significant way, much like he did when he first picked the spot for the coming spring.
If you're looking at the sculpture and you want to determine if it's a failure or a success, if you come to this place and all you see is the sculpture and it dominates, then it is a failure. If you come to the place and because of the sculpture you see this place in a new way, then to some degree it has succeeded.
In Saskatoon, I'm Simon Hiatt reporting.